Okay, welcome back to this council meeting of the 29th of May 2025. For those of you who missed the scintillating last chapter of this story, we did adopt our annual plan 25-26. So we are now moving on to reports and recommendations from community boards on page 60 of agendas, and I'll pass over to Steffi.
Kia ora koutou. This is the regular report that you receive on recommendations made by the community board. I note that there are quite a number of recommendations this time. So I will take the report as read and we can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, so I think a lot of recommendations are a sign that we've got busy community boards, which is great. So I'll start off with, I'll let people from the community board introduce each one, so just to give us a bit of background. So in the absence of the chair of the Paekakariki Community Board, Councillor Handford, would you be happy to introduce this and let us know where it's at?
Yes, sure. So the recommendation that the Paekakariki Community Board were keen to have brought to the table is that there's some investigation as to the process of renaming and correcting existing road names in Paekakariki, because it's come to our attention that there are some that aren't in line with the correct Te Reo Māori spelling of the words. And so my understanding of where that's at is that Kelsey, as the chair of the community board, and Hara, as GM of iwi partnerships, are going to sit down and pull together a bit of a list of some of the of the names that need correcting and sort of the reason for needing correction, and then what the proposed or the correct name would be for those roads. So yeah, I feel like that one's pretty well in hand, but useful to keep it on here so that it's still a matter that is in the mix.
Sounds like it's going well. Cool. So Parapurima Community Board.
Can I have a question to that, or are you going to do questions later?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes, so thank you. So given the conversations today about renaming roads and the cost, has anyone scoped out the cost of this? I don't know how many roads are involved, and how the community actually feel about this.
Sorry, I just had a great. No, not yet. So we haven't started the kaupapa. It's just all in conversation between Paekakariki Chair and myself. We proposed that the first steps would be to, as Sophie has said, is do some form of an audit. So at this stage, probably the costing would probably be staff time, just to see what it looks like, because we actually don't know the scope and how big it actually is. So that's the first stage.
Because street names might potentially be changed, won't that affect?
Yeah. I think we're in the early stages of it, but good questions to watch out for further down the track. Yeah. So Parapurima Community Board in relation to
Can I just ask another question related to that? Sorry.
Sure.
Is this an issue right through Kapiti, or is it just in Paekakariki?
Could you know what they're like doing?
Just Paekakariki, as far as I'm aware.
Right, okay.
Yeah, no one.
Yeah, they're a funny lot down there, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it. We're unique.
Okay,
We've
moving
got
right
something
along.
going for us.
Any more questions relating to this one? Just checking in. No. Now we're ready for Parapurima Community Board in relation to the land on the corner of Kapiti Road and Amohia Street. That's the road by Kapiti,
Lights.
across the road from Kapiti Lights. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this came about on a chair's report that I did back in March. And the chair's report came through actually a discussion that I saw on social media where there was about 100 and something people in the community who actually got involved in this as to what was the status of this piece of land and where it was going to be. And nobody in that discussion wanted to see that piece of land developed. It's a bit of green land now, a bit of green space at the moment. It's been planted. It's where the buildings were. It had the Sounds Air building there, which was brought for the widening of the left-hand turn from Kapiti Road. And that was because of issues with trucks going around, which were taking out lights and stuff like that. So council agreed to buy the bit of land, which was a great thing, and for it to be used to create the slip road, which is on there now, which is also a great thing, which has made that intersection a lot better. And then the question came of, well, what is going to happen to that piece of land going forward? And it was always originally going to come back at some point to say, well, what do elected members and that want to do with that bit of land? And that's where we want to progress it based on this. And I've had a number of discussions with people who, the Brazier family who had the original shops there. And what came out of it as well is there's a lot of history in the development of Paparam as a town. And a lot of that history has been lost at the moment with people at that age and they're passing away and that history is gone. So the other thing that people said was, we need somewhere where that history can be recorded and stored. So, and, for the public. So what we would like to do is to see that bit of land officially become a reserve. If you look at it at the moment anyway, for it to be developed, it would be quite hard to put road access entry either before or after it anyway, because you might put the lights and it's not going to be there. People don't want to see buildings which are already there added onto that. So the extension of that development there, which would also then block out the light and sun from those who are in there. Generally people don't want to be developed. If you go around and look at there, you've got gas stations on two corners. Opposite, you've got a bit of land which is owned by Linds at the moment, which is a complete disgrace at the moment. It can be also used to clean up the area and make it like it should be. It's a very prominent piece of land coming into there. It's a very prominent corner for Paparam and Kapiti. Where it is at the moment, after that I did a little bit more digging. I found out that at the moment it is gazetted as a bit of isolation strip, which doesn't really make sense for what it is anymore. In fact, how it got there in the beginning is interesting as well, because really what that normally means is it's a bit of strip between water, some form of water and the road, or trees and other plants and stuff, which is then a bit of land which is kept to make the road safe, the viewing of it. So the road bit's been done now. So now it's really what happens to the rest of the land. So what we're asking for, the community board, of course, we can't create a reserve. That's not in our scope of our delegations. So what we've asked for is a report on this bit of land. So we've asked what the intentions are for this bit of land, what it is currently classed as, what it would take to turn into a park. We've also asked that as part of that we can look at naming it, with Brazier, Cornice or Park being one of the options to be considered. So we're not saying that it's the only one. We'd like it to go through the normal process, but that to be given to that group to be considered. And what we don't want any money to be spent on it at the moment. So we're not asking for any other money than the basics that needed to be done for that. We're also asking for it to be set aside at a stage as a place where we can tell the story, or the story can, in a later date, be told of the Paparam Township. We're not actually asking for that to be done right now. We're just asking for it to be set aside as an area where that can be done at a later time. So we've asked for a report back on those questions to come back to us. We've said if the report comes back, the community board would like to look at it first, and if we're happy with it, then we would ask for it to go to council, that report, because only council can actually make a decision on, where it is. But, it would have come through us, and we can then give our recommendation and our thoughts on it. I think that will do for an introduction. Yeah, for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Chris has something to add as well.
Yes, thank you. I think I might just set the scene by saying we've obviously been coming out about and engaging around town centre planning. You will also be aware that we are just starting to initiate our master planning, looking across the district at what we have, where we are, and where we want to head to the future. As part of that process, I think, I'll say at the moment, I think the kind of notes or aspirations that you've set out here would feel very nicely into that. In the interim, we actually do have funding to tell the story. As one of the, I'll say, transition points from your decision on Te Urahi. However, that is still that's still in development, and so I think we can see where the connection is, but otherwise at this stage we aren't looking past that point. We would be coming back, but because those are district-wide initiatives, we'd be planning to come through and talk to the full elected member table about the next steps in those processes. So I think it probably fits nicely as potential input to that discussion.
Yeah, I would have a couple of things. One of it being in the town centre is, of course, it's outside of that at the moment. It falls outside of the designated area. And this question was asked at two community board meetings, Waikanai and also at Paparam, about, not specifically this about, but other areas which were close to or on the border of the town centre, but not in it. And the decision, or the response from staff at those two times was, if it's outside of it, it's outside of it, and it wouldn't be included. So one part of that was to do with the station area over here, the transport hub. We were told at the time it's outside of the area. So I would say, yeah, there'd be a question there is, if it is outside of that designated area, how can it be included in that area? Well, because that area has been well defined and, of course, agreed by council as what will be inside of the area, and this is definitely outside of that area. So I would say that is one thing. The other thing is that when I did ask a question about this at the last meeting, I was like, well, on the town centre plan, I said, well, what is the outcome of this? And I was told, well, the outcome of this will be a set of policies. I said, well, was there money to actually do any of this stuff? They said, no, it'll be policies which are then used later on for following, and that is the only part of it. So I'm not really sure how that would fit into it if the answer that I was giving, the town centre was just about creating a set of policies. So I'm not sure this is more than policies and so I'm not sure how that would fit in there.
Yeah, I think I'll just note to obviously close it off. It sounds like it's time for us to come back and just do a bit of an update on town centre planning following our engagement across the district. What I can confirm is, yes, policies will be part of it, but the planning component of town centre planning is that we are actually looking spatially at what we do. The point about the policies and rules is around where the current boundaries are and whether they need to shift. So that'll be something that we are considering through the process. So my suggestion is that I can see points of interest. I think they are relevant to conversations that will be coming forward in the future. And given what you've noted, we would look at how we can use that to inform those processes that are already underway.
Okay, the Chief Executive has something to add. Darren.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I see the request here is for a report back to the Community Board to outline options and plans. The Chair has rightfully acknowledged the fact that there won't be any money spent on this. So I would suggest we note the recommendation and I will respond to the recommendation, noting that there is no funding for any investigation into what the land will be used for. It was purchased specifically for infrastructure. We've completed that project. The land is now in a holding pattern. It's probably the best way to describe it. We can't do everything for everyone. We've just landed at 6.9% with our rate strike. So We've got fees and charges that are going up. So we just have to be financially prudent and prioritise what we can and can't do, and actually be honest about what we can and can't do. And so I'm quite happy to acknowledge the request and to outline what that response will look like, noting that it won't be palatable, but we have to do these things.
So the request to, because the main thing seems to be, I mean, it seems unlikely that anybody would build anything there anyway, but just for the peace of mind of the public, how expensive or difficult would it be to turn it into a reserve?
We can include that in part of my go back to the community
Okay.
board. Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay. So we could, just to close that off in terms of the recommendations, because we don't like to only note the community board recommendations, we could request that the chief executive provide the community board with a response. Okay, that's one suggestion. Glenn, are you happy to take these questions? Do you want
Yes, yes.
Okay,
definitely.
so who have I got next? I've got Liz. Just wait for your microphone, please.
Thanks. I just wanted to join some dots because I have been talking to Darren Grant about that piece of land and also Rosalind Darby, who designed the Waikanai pop-up. And we were sort of thinking about, you know, what could be done to make good use of that land there. Rosalind actually has done a sketch of a little kind of park type thing. You might want to touch base with Darren at some point and just see, because he's involved in the town planning thing as well, I think, isn't he? Darren doing the town planning? Just not really.
I think I've given a response as to what we will be doing in relation to the community board, so I wouldn't
Okay.
like to set any expectations outside
Oh,
of that council.
no. I know. I'm just, but it doesn't hurt to have a plan, right? Doesn't mean we're going to spend money, but it doesn't hurt to have a plan. So, anyway, I just wanted to join the dots, that's all.
Councillor Halliday?
Let's me think about this one. I think what Glenn's trying to do is just ensure that nothing happens there without it going through the community board. That's great that we've got some dots being drawn here, but the last thing I'd like to see is some sort of plan drawn up and the community board can be compliant. This is a local scenario and the community board wants to be a part of it. Appreciate the response. I'm under the impression, Glenn, that you can't actually build on it as such. There's some tanks or something, there's something underneath it, something like that. That means you can't actually build a too big a structure on it or something like that as well. But I think the idea of telling some stories is absolutely fantastic. Fully appreciating that there's nothing in the budget for that. But it might be something the community board might want to steer some of its funds towards as well. And I think that's why you just wanted to check what the designation of the land was, because you can perhaps, as a community board, put some funding towards some stuff on a reserve, but a bit harder to do it if it potentially it's not a reserve as such. So, but whatever happens, I think the key thing is just ensuring nothing does happen without it coming through the community board, because I'd like to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment, Councillor Halliday, that what we've heard today is the community board have their eyes on that piece of land. They've got some aspirations as to what might happen there, and they want to be kept in the loop should anything happen. I think the request in terms of having a report about what's going to happen there over the next 2 meetings, that's not going to be accepted today. We don't have to accept every recommendation from a community board, but what we do hear is that the community board is keen to see that land used in a natural and community focused way and to be involved in anything that happens there. I just wanted to ask, actually I'll go to Councillor Wilson first and then I'll come back.
Be a great place for election signage.
It would.
Looking for a practical use for it. Less likely to have all your signs kicked down than along Remu Road outside Pack and Save, where they all just get destroyed. But the Brazier building, I don't know the history. It used to be a radio station up there. There's a lot of interesting history in there. Something at some stage that just signifies this is where stuff used to happen, whatever. Yeah, the vape shop. The drug dealers used to be here. But yeah, just something to I think Glenn's right. We are in danger of losing our history, and that was really interesting for a long time. There was an airline office was in there, and it was some interesting. There was a radio station in there for a long time. So yeah, just at some stage, just keeping that history would be good value.
So in terms of the broader history, there's some wonderful history boards at the Transport Hub that Anthony Drever did that focus on that whole area. So there's already, it's not like there's nothing there already. So, but it's a matter of adding to it, I guess, in the fullness of time, potentially. Okay, we're going to move on to Waikanai Community Board. Oh, PCB. Bernie's. Oh, yes. Yeah, so I feel like that other one was dealt with, that we stick to 7%. We've already done that today, so that's kind of covered off. So now we'll move to Waikanai.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, hang on. We got Raumati first.
Yeah, I thought so.
Sorry, it'll be brief. So you'll remember that we had a quick briefing on the Raumati Pool building, stage 1 and stage 2. So this recommendation from the community board is simply that council work with the board to be alongside the community in collecting various ideas for what could eventuate in stage 2 of the kind of earthquake strengthening of the building, and making sure that the output of that public consultation or engagement process, I guess, not so much as a formal public consultation, but that conversation happens so that it can be inputted into the 2027 long-term plan. So really just a recommendation to work with the board on community engagement for ideas for stage 2.
So the proposed response is that council do work with the Raumati Community Board, so that's good. Okay, cool. Waikanai? You're up
Sorry.
now, finally. Sorry. Oh, Councillor Wilson wants to ask a question.
I do.
You have to keep waiting, Mike. Sorry.
In relation to that Raumati Pool, the waterfront is there, which is on the tourist destination, and Wellington, whatever they call themselves, have actually got them identified. Fantastic, wonderful, beautiful view if you look that way. If you go downstairs and have a look this way, you've got one of the ugliest looking toilets you've ever seen in your life. It's just appalling. And it's just, like, really, it's just awful. So why don't we have some kind of mural or something on it? But it really, it's just this big ugly thing right next to something that's being sold as a tourist attraction.
Yeah, so very happy we'll be working with the Raumati Community Board to look at both the toilet and what we might be able to do to tidy it up, and also that wall. If you walk through that area, it's it's overgrown, and you've got that corrugated iron sort of blank wall all the way where the old entrance used to be. Yeah, so there were two things we talked about at that meeting. One was involving the board in looking at the future, and the other one was getting Tan involved in what we could do in the short term around community involvement, mural, lightening that area up. And so that's work in progress at the moment.
Brilliant. Any more questions? Waikanai? Michael?
Right, thank you. Seems like as we get closer to the end of this race, we're having longer and longer meetings. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Right, so this is no news. This has been going on for nearly 33 years, this chunk of land at 52 School Road. And the meetings have been going on with council staff for some years off and on, and no real progress has been made. And that's not pointing any blame, but I think this is an opportunity for us before we close out this training to hopefully, with the Communities Hall Society Committee, to come to a formal agreement. And there seems to be a real desire now, after it came before the community board a month and a half ago, and now with the support of the GM of Infrastructure and Asset, Sean Mellon, and Brendan, they've also talked about this to bring this to some kind of agreement. So I'm really pleased that it seems to be progressing there. And there's been a lot of publicity in the local paper and online and on radio in the last few weeks about the subject. So my only, not concern, but desire would be that we could put a fence around in terms of how quick this might be able to be occurred. And I know there's lots of legal things that may need to occur, and of course consents will have to be put in place. And I know there is meetings coming up again with some of Sean's staff with the community's whole committee. But I'm pleased it's got to the stage, and there seems to be now an active desire to bring this to some conclusion and an agreement that they'll look at the land as a whole parcel with some agreements. So there'll be obviously maybe some comments around the table, and probably some staff may be able to give a bit more guidance on where this is up to at the moment.
Do we have any idea about possible timeframes, Sean?
So there was a meeting, I think, last week or the week before. There's another meeting proposed
Next week.
4th of June. Is it 4th of June? So, and the the direction has been that we would like to see it resolved as soon as we can, and that might be a staged. So we might be able to get the lease sorted out, and the lease will have conditions that relate to what you need to do for the car park. Because if there's consenting issues, and there will be, I expect, and there might be transport issues around access and things like that. But it's top of the priority list for Kelvin to get it done ASAP.
So,
but it might take. There'll be some legal stuff that has to be done. So.
Yeah. And going on what the conversation around this table about rates and increases, and what Darren's just mentioned, that there is no money for this. So, and in the conversation today, council made it clear that they can't contribute to this project, which the whole committee understands and accepts, that they're going to put money towards making and reverting that land into a usable rural grade car park. So even though some figures that were put in initial report to us were quite substantial, but that won't occur in this current term anyway. So
no, the lease would allow the board and the hall to determine what they provide in terms of car parking, and what they provide will dictate cost. So that's will be their decision, as long as the functional elements of it, access, all of that is sorted out in terms of consentability, and from a tenant's point of view, everything else that goes on the ground is will be down to the board to agree and fund. And
I'll make one final comment. We don't need to go on this because a lot of people are well across this information, but there is a wider use that the community want to use it for, and if anybody came to the last meeting at the community board, they would have understood that Remo want to bring in some emergency water tanks for using in an emergency for that area. So it will have a lot of purpose, and to actually finally use it for the purpose it was acquired for in early 1993, when the whole committee couldn't afford it late the year before from the family who sold it. At the same time, they sold land for the adjoining fire station and gifted land for the tennis courts behind the hall. So it really would be good to see this land finally realised for the purpose it was acquired. Yeah, that's all I'll just add to it. And there was full support for community board and all elected members in our area too. Oh, sorry, I should acknowledge Otaki Community Board made a formal resolution on the same night of our meeting supporting that intention.
That's really good.
Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate you, Mike, on the way that you negotiated and navigated this issue, because it wasn't plain sailing or straightforward. So and it was a really positive meeting you ran. So well done, Councillor Ivanoff. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So I just wanted to add that it's been great to see the progress that has been made over the since the community board meeting, and just for councillors to know that the Hall Society have provided staff with, I suppose, their views about how they would like the car park to proceed and how it would look. And I suppose really it'd be really great if before the meeting occurs next week that council staff can go back, with a written response so that they can actually look at that in a timely manner so that we can keep the ball rolling.
Cool.
And I think the last community board meeting's on the 2nd of September, which happens to be in Te Horo, so it would be great if an announcement could be made by then. And I suppose, given what's decisions we made today, I don't know potentially what what the financial impacts would be made, but obviously after the 1st of July, the consenting process is going up. So even if they can get a consent in before then, why not? Particularly if locals are paying for it.
Very good. Okay, we'll do our best. I was going to say Councillor Cooper, but there's nobody sitting behind that microphone, so I'll go to Councillor Spires.
Thank you, and I'd also like to congratulate you, Michael, on this. I've been to a few functions at Te Hora Hall and a few funerals, and parking has been at a premium. So I just wanted to congratulate you on moving this forward, and hopefully it happens sooner rather than later. That was all. Thanks.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so we're going to, I'll let Councillor Cooper ask his question if he comes back in, but in the meantime, we'll go to the recommendations. So this is really good stuff. I like this, that we've got A, which is noting everything that the community board said, and then we've got B, which is kind of our responses. So I'm going to add a B4, that the chief executive will provide the Paraparaumu Community Board with a response about their requests in relation to the land on the corner of Kapiti Road and Amohia Streets. Should we pop that up on them? Jess. Okay, so shall we move all the A's while we're waiting for that extra one? So that's all the noting recommendations of all that stuff that went on at community board meetings. So A1 through A6, moved by Councillor Kirby, seconded by Councillor Hanford. Right of introduction, any debate? All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. And then we've got B1, which is council officers investigate the process of correcting existing road names. It's not quite what's happening, but I don't think it's materially different, so it's okay. And then we note that council will work with the Raumati Community Board. We've also heard that there's some other good stuff happening with the community board in that area, which is fantastic. B3, we're investigating the lease gifting options, and they're going to report back to council on options. What we're hearing is that's happening in a timely fashion, and the investigations are going quite well.
We're not leasing.
Yeah, the gifting is totally,
Lease/gifting.
wow.
It doesn't mean both, it means either one or the other. Well, we're going to.
They've already done.
So you've. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what came from the community board, and it does. Yeah. I don't think that it makes a material difference to change it. B4. So that's our new one. Okay, so have we got a mover for those 4 recommendations? Councillor Cooper. He can't. Councillor Cooper's moved. Councillor Councillor Spires is second. All in favour? Aye.
Oh, it's been a debate. Not.
Against? That's carried. Great. Okay. Thank you to our community boards for your amazing work. Confirmation of minutes. Page 66, been moved by Councillor Kirby, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Was everybody here? All in favour? Aye, that's carried. Councillor Halliday is going to move, and Councillor Spires is going to second that we move into public excluded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye, that's carried.